Hi everyone, it's me, Miles, at Teach Me Music Academy, and in this lesson we're going to be learning about using chords. So, first of all, what are chords? Some of you might have heard of them before, but maybe you don't know what they are. Maybe some of you have played them and not realized you were playing chords. But I'm here to demystify that for you today. So, chords are an integral part of playing the piano. As you get a little bit better, once you've mastered maybe playing a melody and just a single note left-hand parts, then you might want to start looking at using chords. So, basically, if I were to define chords, it would be two or more notes played in harmony with each other. So, here's a chord. You might recognize that, you might not. That's a C chord. So right there I'm playing three notes together. It doesn't have to do three, I can take one of those away. That's still a chord, that's still a chord. Right. The most common chords that you'll get, especially as a beginner, are probably two or three note chords. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this lesson. As we get more advanced, we'll start looking at, 4, 5 note chords, etc., etc. But for now, it's really important that you just learn the basics. So, there's two different sounds in music. There's kind of this dichotomy between major and minor. Okay, a lot of music is built around this idea of major and minor. So, what is it then? So, basically, in a practical sense, major kind of sounds happy and bright. Minor is the opposite, sounds kind of sad and dark. Now, that's not always the case because it depends on context, Sometimes a major song might actually sound a little bit sad because of other things going on. For example, it might be played low, it might be slow, the words might be sad. So you can make major things sad, you can make minor things happy. But if I were to just play, for example, a major chord on its own, followed by a minor chord, you would hear that it goes from happy to sad, right? And that's out of context. So we're just talking about the chords out of context. Now, you can also get major scales and minor scales, and some people might even say, okay, that sounds very major, or that sounds very minor, right? So it's just a general thing, right? Major, minor. So relating that to chords, we have major and we have minor chords. And they're the ones that you need to learn first. You can get so far on playing a piano if you only know your major and minor chords. Everything else is kind of just, if you want to be a little bit more advanced, if you want to be a little bit more fancy. But many people do get by with just playing major and minor chords. So for a beginner, this is perfect. This is what we need to learn. So I'm going to show you how to construct them, their effects on, how you hear them and how they affect melodies. And then we're going to have a look at different ways to approach playing the chords. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit first then about their effects, and I'll show you an example of how they sound. So, this is a major chord. That first chord I played before, right? A C major. Right. Sounds kind of happy and bright. Now this one is a C minor. So that's the minor version of the major chord I just played. And you can hear that sounds, if I just play it on its own, out of context with anything else, it does sound more sad, right? Happy and bright, sad and dark. You can hear that. Now, some songs they even do that, right? On the same chord, they'll go from major straight to minor. And you get a really, cool effect from it. Again, going from that happy sound to that sad sound. Let's take Desperado from the band The Eagles. Now, have a listen and see if you can spot where I go from major to the minor chord, all right? listen again. So it's right there, right? Desperado, why won't you come to your senses? Right there. How sad does that sound, right? When it goes from the major to the minor. Why don't you come to your senses? It's really sad. Okay, let's take another one then. Let's take an Oasis track. Have a listen. This is like the pre-chorus part. So I start a revolution from my bed. Yeah? Set the brains of heroin to my head. Can you hear that, right? There it's going from F major to F minor. Right, so in songs like that you can very clearly hear the distinct difference from the major to the minor, and hopefully those couple of examples have helped you to understand how that works within a piece of music. So then, how do we construct these chords? We're going to use numbers for this. Let's take the first note of any chord, right? So if I say a C major chord, the first note of that is C, right? So whatever the name of the chord is, that's what we call the root of the chord, right? That's how we're going to build our chord, starting from C. If I say G minor, we start on a G. If I say F sharp major, we start on an F sharp, right? So let's just take C major. Let's figure out what that is. So let's find C first, right here. C, let's take that as 0. Then I want you to go 4 notes up from that, okay? 4 chromatic notes. Now chromatic means the very next note, whether it's black or white. So this is chromatic. Right? That's what it looks like when you go up chromatically. The very next note to the right, whether it's black or white. Okay, so C is 0. Now let's go 4 chromatic notes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and take number 4. Now continue on and take number 7. 5, 6, 7. So then our major chord sequence is 0, 4, 7. And we can use this for any chord, starting on any note, so for any root note, for example. Okay, let's try G major. And let's use the major chord sequence, which is 0, 4, 7. You've just got to remember 3 numbers, and you can work out any major chord. Okay, let's take G as 0, because G major. G is the name of the chord, right? So that's going to be our root note. 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, take that one. 5, 6, 7, take that one. 0, 4, 7. And that's G major. It sounds like a major chord, right? Okay, let's do a slightly more complicated one. Let's do D flat major. Now, if you're not sure how to find a D flat, go and check out the flats and sharps video and come back to this. But basically, this is D flat right here. Okay, so that's our root note we're starting on. So we take that as 0. Let's go 4 chromatic notes up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then let's take number 7. 5, 6, 7. So you've got D flat, F, and A flat. There's a D flat chord. There you go. Okay, so 0, 4, 7, that's the major scale, the major chord sequence, sorry. 0, 3, 7 is the minor chord sequence, so it's only the difference of that middle number. Instead of a 4, it's now a 3. Okay, so let's try and play a C minor chord then. So let's take C as 0, and then 1, 2, 3. So now we're taking 3 instead of 4, and then continue to 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, keep that one. 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah? 0, 3, 7. So then that's our minor chord. So 0, 4, 7, major, 0, 3, 7, minor. Not too difficult to remember, hopefully. And practically, when you're playing that, it's really easy to do because, you know, if you know your C major chord off by heart, all you have to do is drop the middle note down chromatically, 1 note, right? So that's the difference between major and minor. Okay, let's find another minor chord. Okay, let's find a B flat minor. So here's B flat, take that as 0, 1, 2, 3, keep that, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's B flat minor. There you go. Cool. Okay, so now you know how to figure them out. So how does it work in a song? What's the point in chords? So usually the point in chords is to accompany the melody. So in most music, you don't just have the melody on its own, right? You know, let's take a song for example. Usually you'd have the singer singing the melody, then maybe you'd have a keyboard or a guitar playing the chords underneath. And then, you know, you also have a bass as well, playing the low notes, which would usually be the root of the chords, but not always. So, let's take this song as an example. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. I want to see if you recognise it just by the melody. So some of you might have recognised that, some of you not. If not, that's fine, because I'll be honest, the melody to this one is kind of boring without the chords, right? It's just like this chromatic thing that doesn't really mean anything on its own, right? But as soon as you add the chords, it sounds so beautiful. So check this out. Okay, all right, so that was I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, right? It sounds so much different when you play the chords, right? Because the chords give the melody a sense of direction. And did you spot something in that as well? That major to minor chord thing that we was talking about earlier, right? It went straight from an F major to an F minor, right? Yeah. So, like I said, the chords give it some kind of direction. So you got kind of happy. It sounds kind of weird because we're using chromatic notes, right? But it still works. Right? It gives you that jazzy feel. Dreaming of then it goes up, white. So you know, it kind of lifts up there, white. Then chromatic again, Christmas. Then it goes to the F. F minor, which makes it really sad here. Okay, cool. So that's just one simple example of how chords are important. There's certain melodies as well that remain the same, but the chords change under the melodies. Let's take the melody from Shotgun by George Ezra, right? I'm just going to play this in a basic key for now, so you get the idea. So we'll play it in A minor, all the white notes. You can learn this by watching me if you want. It's a really simple tune. So, okay, play that a bit slower. Then it repeats that. And it repeats that again. Right, so although he's singing different lyrics there, the melody actually remains the same. So it's kind of boring on its own. So, I'll be riding shotgun underneath the hot sun, feeling like a someone. Right? But the chords are changing underneath that. Right? Etc., etc. So, because the melody is remaining the same, but the chords are... chords are actually giving it a sense of direction there because the chords are changing underneath it, but the melodies remaining the same. So that's another example of how important it is that you back up your melodies with a harmony most of the time. Cool, so that's like the practical application. Now, obviously, if you're, a beginner and you've only just started, you're probably not going to be playing melodies and chords at the same time like I just did. But at least you know what they are and you can practice playing the chords on their own. So you can play them with either your right hand or your left hand. Let's just take C major and I'll show you how to play that as a good starting point. So I would play it like this. So we've got C, E, G, right? That's our C major chord, as we discovered earlier. There's a couple of ways to play it. So you can play it with your thumb, finger number 1, your middle finger, finger number 3, or your pinky finger, finger number 5. Right, so you can play it like that. You could also play it like this. 1, 2, 4. Yep. Or if you've got bigger hands, and I would only really recommend this to people who have bigger hands, and it doesn't feel like a stretch, I would go 1, 2, 3 as well. Now the reason I would do that is because it frees up these two fingers here. So if I wanted to play the C octave up here as well, I could reach that, make the chord even bigger. I could even reach here too, right? Frees these two fingers up to do other things. So there's 3 possibilities really, and it depends, you know, what feels comfortable, where you go next, and stuff like that. But that's a little bit more advanced, but I just wanted to, you know, dip our toes in the water so we understand a little bit about how to play the chords, and you can get practicing before you actually, you know, use them in a song. And then with your left hand, it's pretty much the same thing but in reverse. So we could do 5, 3, 1. Or we could do 4, 2, 1. Or again 4, 3, 1, but that one's a stretch, and I'd only use it if you need these fingers spared down here. Basically, so this one or this one is probably the best for now. Cool, and that's the same for the minor chords as well, starting on C. And obviously, if you're starting to play sharp and flat chords, then, you know, you might have to take a different approach. But won't worry about that for now. Just practice playing your C chord. You could also practice an F chord, which is the same. It's like the same shape as C, right? 3 white notes, take one, miss one, take one, miss one, take one. So it looks the same and it feels the same to play. And you can also play G as well. And you can also play A minor, which is this one. So you can have a play around with just those 4 chords, right? Try them in a different order. Just get used to, you know, playing those chords in the right and the left hand on their own. Okay? Now the way we're playing it at the moment, this is what's called a block chord. So a block chord is where you play all the notes together at the same time. Right? And when you're doing this, I want you to practice not rolling the chord, which can be a technique in and of itself. Right? But for now, it's really important that you make sure you're pressing every note down at the same time, right? So your hand is like, really you want to lock your hand in one position, right? So you're not actually trying to press every finger down at the same time, right? You don't play chords like this. What you do is you kind of lock your fingers in place, then use your wrist or your forearm, right? You can play it like that, or maybe just like that, right? So your fingers aren't moving. And then also, like I said, lock your fingers in place, move to the next chord, and your fingers should automatically be in the right shape. For these 4 chords that we're playing anyway, it's not always the case, but for now, you know, these are all the same shape for your hand. And I don't want to see this, right, because the notes are going down separately, right? You really want to get them together at the same time, so it's like one big block of sound, right? Okay, cool, so that's block chords. You can also do other things with them. So you can play broken chords, and broken chords are when you basically take the notes in a chord and play them in some kind of pattern. So we're separating the chords now. So you could do something like this. We're just playing each note in the chord separately. you could do it differently. You could start here and go down. Maybe you could skip one and then play the middle one, right? Okay, and then with that you can actually make patterns in and of itself. So you could write a whole piano part just using broken chords, and many people do. You know. And that sounds like it could be some kind of pop ballad intro, right? So chords can also be used in and of themselves as like introductions to songs, especially when you play them like that, like a broken chord. So practice that too. Once you get comfortable using block chords, practice separating the notes and come up with your own patterns. See if you can write something using the 4 chords I gave you, C, F, G, and A minor. See if you can come up with something, be creative with this. Cool, so that's a good place to start, just to get you used to using chords, understanding what they are, and so, if you need to work out a chord, you can now because I gave you the sequence, right? The formula, if you will. As we get into more advanced classes, then we'll be looking at, how to play, more complex chords, how to do extended chords where, you play more than 3 notes, and how chords relate to one another. But that's in the future, right? For now, especially if you're a beginner, you just need to get used to playing your basic chords and having a bit of fun with it, right? Like I said, be creative, write your own stuff. This is a really good way to get started with songwriting, is just using chord tones. Great. So, hopefully that explained what a chord was, and hopefully you can start playing your own chords now and integrating them into your practice. So, as always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, guys.